And let's take a quick look at your traffic on your ride in this morning. A couple accidents to report. One at Harbison Boulevard and I-26. Be careful as you're going through that area. Another one's going to be at I-77 southbound at 12th Street, right there at exit number 2. Another accident's going to be at have an object in the roadway, actually, out at 277 and Sunset Drive. And another one at I-26 eastbound at exit number 110. Going to be very hot today. Highs in the low 90s. Beautiful weather, though, for the rest of the week. Stay safe out there and you're right in. Nine o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Felcher from Gamecock Central hanging out with us on this beautiful sunny Thursday. When you have a day off in the middle of the week, it really throws things for a loop because I came into today almost thinking it was Monday. But I'm like, no, it's Thursday. There's only 2 more days and it's the weekend. So nice little break there in the middle of the week that does kind of throw you off as the week goes along, though.
It's definitely felt like that a little bit, I would say, at least, just because, things are a lot slower now and
Sure.
You got a lot more time on your hands. Like that's the thing. I'm in a situation where, I'm going back and forth with home and stuff, and I have a lot more time on my hands. I'm like, this is not normal, and I don't know what to do, but I'm enjoying it, I guess.
I was going to say, and in journalism, there's no such thing as a 9-to-5 job. It never sleeps. You're up early. You're out late. Like what is your schedule look like if there is a normal version of your schedule?
There really isn't. My schedule is a day-to-day type of thing. Like one day could be jam-packed and busy out of nowhere. It could be like when we had Paul Manieri come out of nowhere. My entire schedule gets thrown off just when I least expect it. Football seasons, I think, once you enter season mode with football, basketball, and baseball, it kind of becomes normal where it's like, okay, I got this press conference today. I got,
right.
I'm working every day. But like during the summer, it's really hit or miss, to be honest.
Yeah. No, especially, I would say football season is probably I don't want to say the least chaotic, but as far as like moving around, because there's one game a week, you have your press conference on Tuesday at the same time. With basketball and baseball, you're kind of here, there, and everywhere with games and traveling and all that kind of stuff. At least with football, it's a little more like set in place outside of Saturday.
Yeah, it's a little more consistent, and that is the big thing, because there is a schedule that just happens every week. You have press conferences Tuesday, Wednesday, I think Thursday too. I can't remember, but
so it's Beamer on Tuesdays. We usually hear from one of the coordinators on Wednesday, if I remember correctly.
And then
players get mixed in there as well.
Yeah. So, but other than that, look, I'm just, I'm sulking in the time where it's not going to be crazy. Now, a month from now,
sure,
football picks up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change gears, but it should be fun.
Now, Colin used to hate the countdowns. He used to hate when I'd remind him of how many days it was until football season. He was like, well, that's when things really kick up a notch. Are you okay with countdowns, or are you just indifferent?
I'm a little indifferent. I'm trying not to think about it yet, but it's a nice reminder because I do like football season, but it just reminds me that everything's about to really go from here to all the way up here in a matter of seconds. So.
Well, to let you know, there are 72 days until kickoff. So now you can keep that in your mind. Still a little bit of time.
Still some time.
like you said, like another month until we get to media days, which is in Dallas this year, which that's going to be interesting. It's going to be at the hotel again, right?
I think if I remember reading correctly, and don't quote me on this if you're listening, I think it's at an Omni hotel in Dallas. I know it's at a hotel because that's what they did last year when Mike, Colin, and I were there. It was at some Nashville hotel, and
Which that's been the standard for SEC
Yeah.
media days, but I know with the Big 12 in Dallas, they had been doing it at Cowboy Stadium.
yeah,
But at the same time, like SEC media days is spread out over the course of the week. You hear from 3-4 coaches a day, players, all that kind of stuff, which Beamer will be right up teeing things off on Monday morning out in Dallas. Typically, SEC media days last throughout the entire week, where if I remember correctly, I think Big 12 media days was 1 or just 2 days at Cowboy Stadium. They opened it up, had a bunch of stations and all that kind of stuff to kind of get it all done at once, where I guess you couldn't do that as feasibly
no.
over the course of a week with SEC.
And it's easier to pack it into a giant stadium, whereas, at least from my 1 year of going to SEC media days, they have it in like the ballroom of the hotel. So I'm assuming that's what the case would be this year.
Sure.
And I mean, look, it's a tighter space. It just makes sense to do it over a few days. Why not? Just to get more. I mean, hey, it's more TV time for SEC Network. It's
Right.
It just works out in that sort of aspect.
It is 1,000% a made-for-TV event. I mean,
yes.
they got Alyssa Lang and Dari Noka and all those just set up out there for the entire week, because it basically goes from 9 until 3 in the afternoon. Then they're replaying the stuff later on in the day. Like that is because for them as well, the SEC Network, like this is their slower content period, where once baseball ends this upcoming weekend after the College World Series, we're like, all right, we still got a month or so until things really kick into gear. So they want to milk media days for all that it's worth too.
It is pretty cool though, media days. Like once you get there, it's like you got Radio Row and you got all these. You got ESPN set up there, all these different radio. Like it is wild. And look, I mean, baseball does unfortunately end after this weekend, but. Look, football's really not that far away. You got some men's basketball workouts probably going on right now, and look, there's always something going on to pass the time. You got the Olympics in a few weeks. I mean, lots to talk about and lots going on in the sports world.
Well, we call this the season of lists, because this is where everybody's putting out their lists and projections and all that kind of stuff. Phil Steele, who is the guru when it comes to previewing college football, his magazine will be coming out in a couple weeks' time. I saw that it went to press the other day, so it'll be coming out very soon, put out his list of preseason All-Americans. Now, this list, not exactly rich with Gamecocks. One did make the list, though, that being Hunter Rogers as a second-team long snapper on the special teams unit. That is the only Gamecock to be named to his preseason All-America list. And not that I was sitting there reading it thinking like, oh, man, there should be 5 or 6 guys on the team on this list or whatever it may be. But I think, to me, it really exemplified how many questions we have about this team going into the season, because, and credit to Beamer and company, they did so much work in the transfer portal. They rebuilt so much of this roster to where we go in with several position groups not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like it makes sense that there really aren't many Gamecocks on these, All-American watch lists or whatever. Just because, look, I mean, it's not that this team doesn't have talent. When you look at the names on this list, I mean, I'll run down a few: Carson Beck, Ollie Gordon, Amarian Hampton, Luther Burden, Tez Johnson, Colston Loveland. Look, can you really tell me that there are names out there better than those guys I just listed? No, definitely not. Like, South Carolina has a unproven receiver corps. They have a quarterback that we know can be good. But is he going to turn out to be, the prodigal son that everyone makes him out to be? How's the running back game going to look? I mean,
Sure.
At the end of the year, I feel like we could see maybe like a Rocket Sanders make this kind of list at season's end. Maybe a few offensive linemen make the cut at the end of the year. Maybe some of these receivers that we don't know much about right now, how they're going to end up being, have breakout years. I mean, look, these lists at the end of the day really don't mean much. I mean, it's just like anything. It's just like the AP poll and stuff too.
It is.
It's all just for talking and stuff and just to get people riled up a little bit. But at the same time, realistically speaking, South Carolina is South Carolina, and glad to see Hunter Rogers make the list. I mean, that shows that they got something going for them. But again, South Carolina has not proven yet that it can be one of the elites in college football. And until that day comes, they're going to keep getting, I don't want to call it disrespect, but they're going to keep, getting overlooked, I think, by people in terms of these lists and stuff.
No, absolutely. And I think collectively, if you had to poll the nation on their thoughts on South Carolina, they probably are pretty indifferent towards them. I don't think everybody really, outside of this bubble in the SEC really pays all that much attention to what South Carolina is doing. And I think they're justified in doing that because, there hasn't been a ton of success in recent years. They had the 2 games against Tennessee and Clemson a couple years ago that obviously grabbed a lot of people's attention. But, when you don't turn around and have a good season after that and you miss a bowl game, people are going to look at that a little bit more as a flash in the pan, saying, oh, well, they caught lightning in a bottle for 2 weeks, but that was really it. Now, we know it goes a little bit deeper than that. You obviously had injury issues and a lot of other things going on last season that, contributed to why South Carolina did not make a bowl game. But I think year 4 of Shane Beamer is especially critical when it comes to that brand and how people view this program, because once you get into your 4th year, especially now in the transfer portal era, you have what you have. You can't say, oh, well, they're still trying to filter out these guys, still playing with bus champ guys, whatever it may be. Like, no, you are what you are typically at that point in time. And we know South Carolina has a daunting schedule ahead of it, but, the importance of just getting to a bowl game. I know that seems like a low bar to a lot of people, but just getting back to a bowl game is of vital importance this year to kind of get your feet back under you after having them kind of kicked out from under you a season ago.
Yeah, I've talked to people that don't really watch Carolina football, and they ask me like, what's your expectation for the team this year? And I'm like, make a bowl game. Like that 6-6 is good with me. Make a bowl game, and they're like, what? Like, what kind of expectations are that? I mean, look, that's just truly how it has to be for South Carolina. Again, this is a team that missed a bowl game last year. And look, I know the excuse will be injuries and all this and that, and Juice Wells wasn't healthy, and the offensive line was a complete, an utter mess last year, and all this sort of stuff. Spencer Rattler didn't have help around him. The fact of the matter is the team last year was definitely good enough to get to a bowl game. I think people forget that Florida, that Florida game, and I still cannot believe they lost.
One stop. Like one stop.
That game was last October. I genuinely cannot believe that we're still here thinking about that game where South Carolina, like you said, only needed to make one stop. And they did. They had a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter. So I think this year, they're going to be in situations like that to, be able to get the job done. Now, are they going to? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I definitely think this year's team can be a lot better. It's just there's always a lot of things that you feel like have to go right in order to get to where you want to go. That's the case with any team, but I think this year specifically, you have a lot of question marks. If they turn out to be really good, who knows? You might be better than 6-6.
Well, and I think that's what the exciting thing about having so many new guys on this roster. And yes, we got to kind of figure out who's starting where, how are you going to divvy up the reps at wide receiver and all that kind of stuff. But when you do bring in so much good talent, when you do have one of the higher rated portal classes of anybody in the country, there's the potential like, man, this team could come together and be an 8-9 win team. I'm not sitting here predicting that, but you just never know with that much, change on your roster. And obviously, Lenore Sellers, very hyped coming out of high school. We saw what he did in small flashes a season ago. He could end up being leaps and bounds better than anybody thinks he's going to be. I know we have people out there call him a dark horse Heisman candidate. I'm not really putting him on that list yet, but what if he goes out there and has a phenomenal freshman season and is talked about as one of the best quarterbacks in the country? We certainly think he has the skills and abilities to do that. It's all about going out there and executing now.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of this season will definitely ride on how he does, because the thing is, I mean, the difference between making a bowl game and not making a bowl game could potentially rest on his shoulders. Like I think he's gonna have some of those those like rookie type of mistakes.
Sure.
He's gonna be playing against SEC defenses, and I think at some point this year South Carolina will win a game that they're not supposed to, whether it's against LSU or Ole Miss, Kentucky. One of these games, something's gonna click.
Sure.
And I think we'll see flashes from Sellers at times. Again, there's a lot of pressure on him, in my opinion, but I think he has shown, at least so far, at least talking to the media and stuff, that he can handle it, and he's ready for it. But we're going to have to see, and I think, a lot of what South Carolina does this year rests on his shoulders, and we'll see what happens.
72 days away from kicking off against Old Dominion. The way you experience college football when it comes to College Game Day may look a little bit different this upcoming year. A notable name, not sure if he's going to be coming back for the 2024 season. With that coming up, it is the Extra Point. He is Jack Felcher from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on your Thursday morning here in the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belch from Gamecock Central hanging out with you on this Thursday as we navigate the dog days of summer. But very soon, we'll be waking up early on Saturdays, turning on ESPN, and being treated to the sounds of College Game Day. I'm still not in love with the new version of Coming to Your City that debuted a season ago. To me, if you're gonna introduce a new band, look, I love Darius Rucker. He's the hero of South Carolina. We all love Darius Rucker. But Big and Rich did that song so well. If you're going to change the band up, do a different song. Don't do the same song and add a twist to it.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I just think, look, I love Darius Rucker and all. He's a great musician, and Big and Rich is also very good.
Yes.
But at the same time, maybe it was the right time for a new song. That's the thing. I don't know why it's a good one, but like, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing to me. If you're going to change the whole thing, because you're singing the same song in a different way, a less enjoyable way, in my opinion, that's just reminding people how much better the older version was. Like, rip off the Band-Aid. Give me a different song with a twist that, people aren't going to like initially, but over time you get used to it. Instead, you're just reminding them of something that was better than what you had before.
Think of it like with Sunday Night Football for NBC, for example, where they, Carrie Underwood's the musician that performs the anthem for it or whatever. Before her, and even during her decade plus of doing it, they've changed the song over the years, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, it's not a bad thing to change. I don't know why everyone wants to not change, I guess, but with ESPN sticking with the same song, it's weird.
Well, Game Day itself has changed quite a bit over the past couple of years. You have lost guys like David Pollack, Gene Wojnarowski, Tom Rinaldi, all those to now this past year you had Pat McAfee as a featured, like, actual on the desk every single week member for the first time. He'd been there in spots the past couple of years before as his media empire was growing, but He definitely was polarizing, to say the least, this past college football season. However, we are, again, about 2 months away from the season starting. He is not re-signed yet for College Game Day in 2024. Now, he is very aware of the criticism that people lofted his way, and he's not for everybody. He's definitely brash. He's definitely not afraid to step over some lines, but typically, people of our age, the younger demographic, enjoy Pat McAfee, but it's the older crowd that seems to push back on him a little bit. And I don't know. It seems like he may not be back in the fold this year.
I wonder what the deal is with that, because I don't know. I felt like, love him or hate him, I feel like College Game Day there were a lot more eyeballs on it this year. Maybe I don't know the numbers exactly, but
Sure.
They definitely felt that way because Pat McAfee is a character and he adds his own, spin to everything, and there's a certain crowd that comes along with him. That's the thing. Like, people love watching his own show and stuff. I occasionally tune in. I find it, very insightful at times because, again, he's talking to, pro athletes and stuff and getting their take on it. Like, he just had Bryson DeChambeau on the other day to talk. So, and that stuff, the way he interviews isn't typical. It's not, you wouldn't get that in a normal, Sports Center interview or whatever. But
Sure.
With Pat not being back potentially next year, I wonder how it's going to change things. Is it going to go back to, because look, College Game Day right now, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of lacking a little bit. Lee Corso, love him, great. He's great for the sport. He's an ambassador of college football. However, the guy is almost 90, and he's fumbling his words and stuff. It's not entertaining to watch. And then, Kirk Herbstreit's always been great. Desmond Howard, I don't think is very enjoyable to listen to be honest. And I can't even tell you the whole supporting cast around him because David Pollack's not there anymore. Gene Wojciechowski's not there anymore. All those guys that we just listed off are not there. And so bringing someone like Pat McAfee in was a breath of fresh air, in my opinion.
Sure.
Whether you like him or hate him.
And I think the Corso thing's important to point out there because, again, he had always been the kind of energy of the show for a long time, and you know, for years and years, he could bring that energy throughout the show and was smart as a whip and all that kind of stuff. But as his health has declined, he's had the strokes and all that kind of stuff where he's not that same guy. We still have the headgear segment at the end of the show, which I hope they keep doing as long as Lee Corso is able to get out there and do those shows. You know, if that's the only time we see him in the entire show, then that's fine with me. But those segments in between, he can't give the analysis or you know, jump up and down with the crowd, you know, at 10:45 or something like that, as opposed to what he does at the end of the show. So I thought McAfee was the perfect kind of bridge for that, where you have a high energy guy being in there through the bulk of the show. That is he the best when it comes to breaking down film and analysis of offenses and defenses? No, not necessarily, which is something I do miss Pollock being there for. But again, he's a showman and an entertainer, and that does bring a nice flair to what is a very entertaining show.
And I think bringing someone like Nick Saban into the fold is going to serve as that, you know, I think Nick can definitely be funny, but also he can provide analysis unlike anyone else. I mean, he's seen just about everything in this game. And I think he's going to be a nice addition. I think he takes over that spot of Corso. And no one's going to do the headgear, but eventually when Corso is all said and done, Nick slides into that fold nice and easily, I think. And look, I think they need Pat. I think ESPN is in a weird situation where they brought him on, they let him do his show and stuff, and that's very uncharacteristic of ESPN. Like,
Sure.
I mean, he pushes the boundaries unlike anyone else. But again, you gotta if he look, it's all about money at the end of the day. If he's bringing in money and bringing in viewership and stuff, you can't cut him loose. And they're gonna have a hard decision to make here. But I feel like at the end of the day, like I said, if he's bringing in the numbers, you have to keep him around. Otherwise, the show's going to tank, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I was excited about the possibility of him and Saban working together. Saban was a featured guest on his show this past season, and we saw, and maybe this was because it was his last year, so he was loosening up a little bit anyway, but we saw a different side of Nick Saban talking to Pat McAfee, because like you said, it's not a typical interview. I mean, Nick Saban does God knows how many interviews, you know, during the course of a football season, but this was more of kind of like just two guys hanging out, having a conversation. And I'd be very interested to see, because Nick Saban does have a good personality when he's not being a hard-nosed football coach, that I feel like Pat McAfee could really pull that out of him better than anybody could on the stage, because I want to see the funner side of Nick Saban embrace things and, you know, be a little bit kooky at times on the College Game Day stage. And I feel like Pat McAfee would be the perfect person there to help him do that.
The fact that Pat can loosen up guys like Nick Saban and Bill Belichick should tell you a lot about how he is as a character. And again, he's a funny guy. He seems like a genuinely nice guy too. Look, it's just the fact that some of his takes it's not for the faint of heart all the time. But I think he means well. It's just, you know, not everyone kind of gets where he's coming from and what his stance on things are. But again, he's also a former, you know, professional athlete. You know, he played in the NFL for years. He went to West Virginia, so he gets it. It's not like he's some, you know, random, you know, comedian or whatever that
Sure.
you know, just wants to do this as a side hustle.
And again, he's got an entertaining personality, which a lot of these people, they stick on studio shows, and like Tom Brady is going to be in the booth for Fox this year. And Tom Brady, credible quarterback, great insight. I don't know how great of an analyst he's going to be. Just because he's a great football player doesn't mean he's going to break it down in an entertaining and engaging way like so many other people before him have done. But McAfee, again, checks the box. Yes, he was a punter. Well, we're not breaking down special teams film a whole lot of the time, but anytime we do, they do the kick thing for the money,
Yes.
and like that is perfect. Like they really lean into what he brings to the table. I just hope he decides to come back for another year, because I feel like the show would have a big void without him.
Yeah, and I feel like it definitely. I'm glad you brought that up, that last point there, because I feel like this is a double-sided, you know, double-edged sword. Because while it is ultimately up to ESPN whether or not they want to bring him back, at the same time, maybe Pat just doesn't want to deal with ESPN's I don't know how to put it exactly, so I'm not gonna put it, but I just think there's more to it than that meets the eye. I think there's a lot that's, you know, swept, like we don't know the full extent, because again, there definitely is some sort of I don't think it's all sunshine and rainbows with ESPN and the Pat McAfee partnership. I feel like there's definitely been some bumps in the road, and I think it's whether or not these two sides want to work together. I feel like Pat is probably more willing to do it because he's working with a team, and it's not just him or whatever.
Sure.
But with ESPN, it is ultimately their call, and maybe they just don't want to deal with his act for another year.
Maybe we'll see. But again, he's got still a couple more months to re-sign, and we'll see if he gets that done before the college football season, which I guess week 0 is technically 65 days away. Yeah, 65 days away. So if you count week 0, I know Wes doesn't, but I do. Football is football.
What big games do we have for week 0 this year?
Oh, we got Florida State and Georgia Tech over in Ireland.
That's right.
That's one of them. There's a couple more. I can't remember. That's the marquee one. So I like the fact that we get at least like one big game in week 0 now. Usually,
game day
gives you something.
Game day's going for that game, right? To Ireland.
If they're not in Ireland, I'm sure they'll be doing a show stateside. But we'll get something that morning at least.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta. And if we get to that point of that game and there's no Pat McAfee, I'm just curious to see, like, viewership. I feel like it's going to plummet, but then again, you never know. People love watching for the Lee Corso bits and stuff, but again, imagine a day where he's not there and no Pat McAfee. That's going to be crazy.
I worry every year that we've seen the last Lee Corso, so hopefully it's not anytime soon. We'll keep on the football conversation. An interesting development in the NFL, potential salary cap on quarterback salaries. We'll dive into that coming up. It is the Extra Point. He is Jack Beltree, Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head, along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Oh, Tyler Head for our friends over at Twin Peaks. We are indeed in the dog days of summer. Feels like those work days may take a little extra longer. You might be looking forward to the weekend to finally kick back and relax a little bit. Well, why wait for the weekend? They're serving scratch food and pouring quality cocktails every night after dark. Come by the Lodge and experience the best late night in the league today, tomorrow, or really any other day of the week. There's really no better place to kick back and relax after a long, hard day at the office than with our friends over at Twin Peaks Down the Vista. A lot of cool things coming up that you can experience at Twin Peaks. NBA draft coming up at the end of next week, and then the NHL draft right after that. The Stanley Cup playoffs still going on, by the way. You can also check that out down with our friends at the Lodge, too. All that, food, 29-degree draft beers, and so much more with our friends over at Twin Peaks down in the Vista. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central hanging out on this Thursday. Appreciate our friends over at Georgia Pacific for our Talking Hardwood segment. Today we're talking hard money and the money that is tied up in quarterbacks in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence just getting a huge deal last week where he ties Joe Burrow as the highest paid quarterback per year in the NFL, pulling in $55 million. And that has stirred up some conversation around the league about maybe potentially slowing down this runaway train that is quarterback salaries. Tom Pelissero was on the Rich Eisen show the other day and actually talked a little bit about those rumors of what could be coming down the pipeline as far as league money goes.
There certainly has been discussion within the league, Rich, among certain owners about even the idea of a quarterback cap, that at some point you want quarterback numbers to not go over a certain percentage of your salary cap. To my knowledge, that really hasn't gained traction, in part because so many teams have paid their quarterbacks. And if you went to suddenly an NBA model where all of a sudden you have the max and the super max, and there's really only a couple levels that guys can get paid at, it kind of changes the dynamics in terms of how you set yourself up salary cap wise and whatnot. So absolutely, there's been a discussion about exactly what you're talking about, which is, how are we paying this much money to this position and to certain guys just because they're the next one up? And that's where that Trevor Lawrence contract for some people is going to be one of those moments where Trevor Lawrence matching Joe Burrow as the highest paid player in NFL history, given a little bit of the inconsistency we've seen from Trevor Lawrence, the fact that he and the Jaguars did not play well down the stretch last year, it does give some people pause, but it's also a reflection that the quarterback market, like the salary cap, is going to continue to go up. So the longer you wait, the higher these numbers are probably going to be, absent what you're talking about, which would be some team convincing a player to take a sub-market deal, which is really hard to do in 2024.
It's become an arms race. Like every time a quarterback gets paid, the next question is, all right, well, who's going to be next and get a bigger salary than them? It's just a game of one-upsmanship. And when you see, obviously, the Patrick Mahomes and the Joe Burrows and stuff get these monster contracts, you're like, okay, I get that. But then Trevor Lawrence, which, again, Trevor Lawrence, phenomenal talent as the next Peyton Manning and all that kind of stuff. Preston and I talked about this the other day that, he's been on my radar and many people's radars for 10 years now at least, being going all the way back to his early high school days. So it's not that he can't be that great player in the NFL. We just haven't seen it yet to justify pulling down that much money annually.
No, I don't think he has warranted that much money. And look, he's a good quarterback, but he's not in the same vein as Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and those kinds of guys. I group him more with the guys like Justin Herbert and I'm blanking on other names, but
I mean, he's in that second tier probably of quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, Mac Jones has been looking pretty good at Jags camp, but I don't know. I think the problem with paying quarterbacks that much money is that it impacts the rest of the team, and this is kind of where our discussion is probably heading here in a second, is that quarterbacks are making more money than anyone else. And when you have guys that are making as much money as Trevor Lawrence is going to be, that takes away from potentially paying other guys. That's the thing.
I looked this up and again, a lot of teams do move between different quarterbacks. I have 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. A third of them are making at least 20% of their team's salary cap, which Trevor Lawrence is at 21.5% of what the Jaguars salary cap is, which is where this conversation that Pelissero was talking about is coming in, is like the league trying to figure out a way to put a cap on what quarterbacks can make based on the salary percentage of the team. I don't know how you do that. It very much feels like a toothpaste out of the tube, because what quarterback is going to voluntarily say, yeah, I'll be the one that just going to make less than everybody else? Because you have to have a starting point, and everybody else has to fall in line behind it. And there's a reason that these teams keep paying more and more and more, because they want to hold on to the quarterbacks that they have, but that continues to reset the market.
Quarterbacks should easily be paid more than anyone else. That is clear. However, look, quarterbacks are involved in just about everything. They have to know the playbook better than anyone. They are responsible for throwing the ball, handing it off. They are, an integral part of the team. However, like, other guys on the team should be making not as much money, but should be making more. And I think having some sort of potential separate salary cap just for quarterbacks, I think is a interesting road to head down, because then I would imagine if that were to ever come true, it would free up money to give to the other guys on the team. Not that they're making nothing, but again, it allows you to spend your resources a little better, I think.
And that's where I'm going to be interested to see how the NFL Players Association reacts. And again, this is just conversation right now, rumors, anything else. I don't know if this ever comes to fruition, but you have the one side of the coin with the Players Association where they say, well, we don't want our clients suddenly not making what we perceive their value to be, and as far as quarterbacks go. But at the same time, you have these other groups, particularly other position and skill players, they're like, well, we're not making as much as we maybe could be making because so much money gets tied up in quarterbacks.
I think it's a win-win for everyone, though, right? Because if I'm reading this all correctly, quarterbacks would have their own separate salary cap, so they can still get paid pretty much what they are. And then, for the other salary cap with just everyone else, guys would be making probably 10% more than they do right now. I think that's a win-win, unless I'm mistaken. But I think the way the system is right now, it suffers because guys, like quarterbacks, have to feel like they might have to sacrifice up some money. Think about Tom Brady, for example. He never got the huge paydays until I think the end of his career when he was in Tampa, because with New England, he was always trying to save some money so that way they could pay the rest of the team. And right. I think that's what you're seeing with guys like Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes having to restructure their contracts. So I think when you get to a point where you don't really have to do that and everyone gets paid the way they want, it's a win-win.
Tom Brady also had a supermodel wife that was also bringing in millions of dollars at home at that time that helped too.
Yeah, now he doesn't. So.
No, he doesn't.
Now he doesn't. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a really interesting discussion, and I don't know. I mean, it's crazy that there is a salary cap in the NFL. What's the only sport that was it? The NBA that doesn't have a salary cap?
Baseball doesn't have a salary cap.
Yeah, it's that too. So I don't know.
If you want to talk about an arms race, baseball is an arms race.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I wonder how the NFLPA would go about it. I don't know. I don't know how stingy they are. I know the MLBPA is stingy, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's too many hoops to jump through with this.
There are.
And again, as Pelissero mentioned, I don't know how much steam it's gaining right now, but the fact that we've gotten to this point with how much we pay quarterbacks, and again, Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, justified certainly with the money that they get in, but you have other guys mixed in there that it's like, okay, does Kyler Murray deserve to be the 8th highest paid, 7th highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now? No, he doesn't. He hasn't proven that. But again, every time a quarterback gets paid, it resets the market to where the next quarterback contract that comes up, they got to go one higher.
Speaking of the market, what does Dak Prescott's going to be the top flight quarterback on the market at the end of the year, because the Cowboys cannot franchise tag him, and he's in the last year of his deal. If he has another pretty good season, the issue with Dak, in my opinion, is he's a great quarterback. I've always enjoyed watching him. I think he's been on my fantasy team a few times now.
Sure.
The problem with him is he cannot win the big game. We've never seen him in a Super Bowl. I don't even know if we've seen him in an NFC Championship game.
No, you have not.
That's the issue.
The Cowboys have not been to the NFC Championship game in my lifetime.
That's crazy.
They last went about 6 months before I was born, believe it or not. And I bring that up to Cowboys fans quite a bit.
Yes.
So.
And I just wonder, Dak's going to command a lot of money. I think if Trevor Lawrence is making the money he is, I wonder what Dak's going to. Dak has to be making more.
I was going to say he's going to be the next one to get paid probably more than anybody else, which again is just going to continue to show how much money gets tied up into quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens with the NFL, the Players Association, if any of this does indeed see the light of day. We'll come back. We'll wrap up today's edition of the X Point. College World Series final is set. And guess what? It's the SEC once again. We'll dive into that coming up. It is the X Point. He's Jack Beltry. I'm Tyler Head on your Thursday here on the game.
strikeouts tonight. On the ground, could be two, could end the game, and it will. A&M on to the College World Series Finals to take on Tennessee.
Welcome back into the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central hanging out with you on your Thursday. That was the call last night out in Omaha on ESPN as A&M takes the 6-0 win over Florida to advance to the College World Series Final as it will take on the Tennessee Volunteers starting on Saturday night out there in Omaha as both programs looking to claim their first national championship in yet another SEC versus SEC final.
It's crazy, man. It's going to be a good one, I think. I think it's going to go the distance in that third game. And seriously, these are the two best teams in college baseball. I think I said A&M was going to, when we gave our predictions, you can chime in on this. I picked A&M. Who'd you pick?
I believe I picked Tennessee.
All right. So I guess the next time we meet, we'll have a winner here. But hey, these are two really good teams, and again, it just shows how good the SEC has been this season.
Well, and Tennessee is trying to do something that has not been done since 1999, and Miami winning as the #1 overall seed at the Men's College World Series, which is a crazy thing to think about with all the great teams that have come in there as that top seed. But Tennessee playing its best baseball. Obviously, Texas A&M really good team as well. And again, Greg Sankey can sit back with his feet propped up, comfortably knowing, regardless of which way this goes, he's going to be able to claim another national championship for the SEC.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I'm curious to see how it goes. Both teams are riding high right now. Tennessee has been the clear and cut favorite to win it all year long, in my opinion. They've been playing some amazing baseball, and it says a lot about the SEC. Like Florida, what a run they went on. No one thought that they should have been in the tournament to begin with, and then they go to Stillwater, they win that regional. Then they go to Clemson, they win a really tough 2 games there, and then they run the table in Omaha.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Florida was a team that many people thought didn't even deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, because of their record. They got bounced early in Hoover and everything, but they made most of it, and that's a program. And Kevin O'Sullivan's a great tournament coach in general, obviously national champion in his own right, played for another one, a season ago. That when you get a team like that in a tournament, they're always going to be dangerous. And, I think they were put in a little bit of a funky situation yesterday where the game from Tuesday night against Kentucky got postponed to yesterday morning. So they had to play 2 games over the course of 12 hours and beat Kentucky pretty handily early on yesterday morning. Then turning around playing A&M later on in the night certainly set them up at a disadvantage. And again, to even make it that far is testament to what they've been able to do. And hats off to Kentucky as well for a program that had never made it to the College World Series before. Certainly turned a lot of heads this season to be playing on the final day of eliminations prior to the College World Series final. I mean, shout out to what Nick Mangione has done up there in Lexington as well.
That is a really good team right there. That is a team you do not want to mess around with over the next few years. I feel like Nick Mangione's definitely got them going in the right direction. I think Kentucky can be in this spot again year after year. Again, it just depends on, I don't know who's coming back for them next year. That's the thing. But I think their brand of baseball, it works. Small ball is the way to go for them, and they have some guys that can hit in that lineup, hit a few home runs here and there. But I definitely think the SEC really showed out this tournament. And it's not to say the ACC didn't, but again, the SEC is the clear and cut favorite. And, with Oklahoma and Texas joining the fold next year, it's going to get tougher.
I was going to say, I think it's easy to say this is the best the SEC has ever been at baseball. Always been good. But you put a record number of teams in the tournament this year, you're going to have yet another SEC versus SEC championship final going on this weekend. Then again, you welcome in 2 more teams in Texas and Oklahoma that are pretty darn good at baseball themselves to make the league even tougher, which, again, goes back to why you feel so much better about hiring a guy like Paul Mainieri here at South Carolina, because that's the kind of hire you're going to need to make if you're going to make an instant impact in this even tougher league next year.
And I feel like we can kind of compare this era of SEC college baseball to like when the SEC was winning the BCS national championships in football every year, because it's like the SEC is going to get there somehow, some way. I mean, look, winning the SEC championship back in the day is like a guaranteed bid to get to the national championship. Now with college baseball, it's a tougher gauntlet to run through. Like teams like Florida and Kentucky and all these teams that have made it. It's a tough journey because you got to go through 3 rounds and you got to get to Omaha. Omaha's tough too. I mean, I don't know, just the fact that there were 4 teams from each side of the ACC and the SEC. It was interesting, and I think the SEC really showed like this past week that hey, they are the best conference in college baseball without a doubt.
By the way, A&M and Tennessee did play at the SEC tournament, with Tennessee eliminating A&M by a score of 7-4 in that one. So these teams did see each other a little bit earlier on this season, and you'll see how they re-rack and get ready for a 3-game set.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know how pitching staff's set up for these teams, but the point is,
we get 2 days of rest, so everybody should be good to go.
And they both slug. I mean, look, A&M's obviously missing Braden Montgomery, but I think the rest of those lineups are really solid. I think it's just going to come down to, okay, who gets one more out, who gets one more hit. I think at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be A&M. I just think they are a really solid team. But again, Tennessee is also a team of destiny, in my opinion. After that first game, I think it was when they had that huge comeback against Florida State. And, you could say that Tennessee should not be in this position right now because of that check swing call that should have been the final, strike of the game, but it wasn't, and they went on to win the game. So, can they continue it? We're going to see, but I definitely feel like A&M's clicking at the right time.
Florida State's going to be upset about that check swing for a while.
They're going to be upset about sports in general for a little bit, I think.
It's been a rough year for them, to say the least. That'll do it for today's edition of the X Point. Appreciate it as always, Jack, and we'll see you next week.
No, appreciate you having me on, man.
Connor at Trust Hour coming up next with Gamecocks tight end Connor Cox here on The Game.